Hello, everybody. Raz here. I know a lot of people have been wondering where the discussion, the LPL content that we've had in the past, where they've gone. A good example is, of course, my podcast that initially came through at the beginning no longer existed. That was when, I had Frosk with me. Who else? I had Clement with me a few times. I had Pulse with me once. That was a great podcast, good times, and it was thrown onto the LPL YouTube channel. And then, of course, I had the Middle Kingdom Mines with Thorn, and that was good fun, good success. Had fantastic discussions weekly, and now the idea for me, because I've always wanted to do this, I've been dabbling with what I could do with my own channel, and more so how could I provide LPL content and discussion for the people that crave it. And I don't really care too much about views personally. I do care about the healthy discussion and real talk that seems to be missing in the Western mindset. So here's my take. Raz Takes. There are no mistakes. They're just my takes about a lot of the week-to-week discussions about the LPL. There won't be so much weekly discussions about the teams, like day-to-day, match-to-match. That's something that maybe we could do in the future episodes and all that. But more so just holistic discussions. Roster takes, at least because we're in the first 2 weeks. Now, LPL's hilarious because our week 1 only had 2 days. So our week 2 had a full week. So technically we're a week and a half into the games. But no. We're already starting week 3, as you can tell, which is always funny to have that discussion with people because it's like, well, welcome to the LPL and how we do things. But down to what interests you guys. Invictus Gaming. I want to talk about IG. I'm going to talk about IG. Now, these episodes are only going to be my hope and goal is 30 minutes long, something easily consumable, but, hefty discussions. And Invictus Gaming is a great start to all of that talk. Because what the hell has happened to Invictus Gaming is, of course, the questions on many people's mind. I'm a pretty conservative person, man. You know me. Whenever it comes to talks like these, I'm never going to be the first person to just jump right into the pool. I'm going to take some time to really gauge on a team's motivation and what they're going through. And much like how Team Liquid's been slipping and falling to teams like Echo Fox and all of that, or I can't even say G2's is going and continue to play like champions. But SKT losing to Afrika Freaks in the fashion that they did, and I think that's the most important thing, is not so much the fact that it happened. It's literally how dumb that game was. Series was, asterisk. And that they are not looking any way cleaner or any way close to what they showcased in MSI. And that says a lot about teams coming back in with only a week's break. Every other teams domestically came in with full breaks, of course, to take time off, to not feel that burnout. And it's insane, personally speaking, that we are treating our champions in such a way that they are tasked to come back with little time to, first of all, little time to take a break after and celebrate, right? If we're talking about teams in any other sport, once they win that big chip, they have time to really go back to back home or back to the studio and celebrate their success with their trophy. And we don't even give that to not only our regional champions, but of course the international champions. And I think that's messed up. I think that needs to change. I think if you come back, that needs to be a real off season. I don't mean like 2 months long. I mean at least 3 weeks. 3 weeks seems reasonable to me. I know a lot of people, a lot of fans out there wouldn't like that concept, but my God, would it feel good to watch come back, right? If you're a fan, think of it this way. If you're a fan, you come back, you settle down after the 3 weeks break, 1 month break perhaps, you sit down and you watch the champions that you've seen in the international play come back to good form. Because not only did they take that time off like every other team, and 2 weeks for me is good enough time to feel like it is a break. But they get that time to come back, understand the patch, not only on an individual basis of going through solo queue, but having the time to go back and scrim with a fresh mindset. These teams have not been given that chance. have not been. While being given the greatest lesson of all time of going internationally, seeing all these different types of play, and coming back and saying, okay, this is the things that we should change as a team. They weren't given that chance, and now you're seeing them flop for multiple reasons at the same time, and now we're giving them all those criticisms. Now, that's where I'm going to say for Invictus Gaming as a team, we need to take that step back. In SKT as a team, take that step back. Team Liquid, take that step back. But then, as we've moved on and on, there are now real discussions about Invictus Gaming. Not in just the fact that Lucas has been coming in. People who haven't been watching, Lucas is the support that hasn't really played that many games on the academy team, but has been with the organization. They understand how he plays the game. They've, of course, run some practice sessions, scrims, to see how he plays. They put him in, and it's not that he's bad, but obviously it changes the communication, changes the flow on the bottom side of the map that has been largely the weak side of the map. And when I say weak side, I don't mean that they play poorly. I mean that they don't get that much jungle pressure. The jungle pressure goes top side. That is just how you end up seeing Invictus Gaming play the game. And so if you understand you're not going to get any resources, and a lot of the times if you end up poking your head out like a centimeter in the highest like premier play as a rookie coming in, you're going to fail. And I think that he was set up to fail. Now, as you can tell, he's continuing to play, so it's not like they're judging him strictly based off of these games, but they're not winning these games. In fact, the one series that they won wasn't convincing in any fashion against one of the poorer teams, and they lost to Victory 5, a team that's perceived to be bottom 2 in the league. So it's been real tough for that team, but of course I gave them that caveat. But now you're seeing this new story about Rookie going back to Korea for family reasons, purposes, health issues on that front. So, all the love to Rookie on that one. And I hope that everything goes well. But if we're just talking about competitive play, yeah, it's only getting harsher and harder for Invictus Gaming. Now, when I was talking about, projecting this team coming back into championship form after Rift Rivals, or maybe even at Rift Rivals, right? Maybe that's going to be that point in which they are able to come in, strong flow, maybe Baolan comes back, or maybe Lucas is strong with the system. Maybe he understands the system and he has his own place in the team. And so they can start coming up with churning out not just victories, but victories in which they feel good. But now if we're talking about Rookie not playing, that is a big question mark and pushes that to like what? Are we talking about week 6 now? Week 7, week 8? When Invictus Gaming can look good? And that changes the whole discussion about, first and foremost, where are they going to be placed in the regular season, because they're no longer going to be at that last like semifinal run. Because remember, when that gauntlet system, are you going to have to make a longer trek now? That's my first question. And the second question, are they ever going to be the same? Are they ever going to be the same team that we all knew them for? Especially since if they're going to be coming out, and the news is that they're going to be coming in with their academy mid laner to sub him in. His name is Shin. I've seen a few of his games, especially the NEST games, but I've seen the LDL performances, and he is a confident player. He's an aggressive player, but you're not going to be the level of Rookie. That's not even going to be the expectation. Rookie is largely seen as the best mid laner in the world, if not top 2. That is the discussion that you consistently have. So like, can he even hope to achieve that? Oh, maybe in a long run, but you'd have to be able to put in some great work. And so if you're talking about North American fans and how you see it, it's like moving from, let's say Bjergsen, let's say Bjergsen, and you move to a mid laner like, let's say Golden Glue. Nothing to Golden Glue, but I'm just talking about mid laners that are trying to, find consistency in the Premier League, be able to hit that. And maybe it makes more sense if I go with Saligo, a player that, is a rookie and is just trying to find footing on a major league, but needs time. Not just needs time, needs to find himself, needs to find what his play is. Is he a slow play? Is he a mage player? Is he an assassin? Now, of course, a lot of these players will have understood that, but trying to figure out what their role is on their team, on that system, is far more important. You'll see players like, I'm trying to remember the mid laner of Snake not so long ago. I'm not talking about Malo. I'm talking about Andy. That's his name. Andy, who plays assassins, who plays ADs, but on that system, you really require him to be able to play facilitating mids, like the Lissandras that was incredibly meta at the time, to be able to hold SOFM's hand and support SOFM in a lot of these ventures. That was a big change for him. That's something that he didn't get to play in LDL. Now I'm going on a roundabout point, but I'm talking about Sin now coming in, needing to play that system. And what is that system? Now, Invictus Gaming's identity is the fact that they have so much faith in the individual players that they will find themselves early gold leads pre-15. That no longer exists if you do not have rookie starting. And if he comes right back in, that's going to take a long time. So I think, does this change the discussion for Invictus Gaming? Yes. Suddenly, what started out as the same situation that every top team in every top region goes through is now turning into something much deeper. And I hope that he comes back and that Invictus Gaming comes back as a strong squad, because you do not want a former world champion missing that ticket to the next, to the next world championship. You don't want Invictus Gaming slipping up due to an amalgamation of issues, right? Because it reminds me of Team WE that lost so much praise. Like they were on top of the world, they were on top of the LPL, but so much had happened where, Condi, for family reasons, took a step back. And that was the core of their identity. The core of their identity wasn't going to be CA. He turned into that from necessity. It wasn't Mystic, though he was such a damn good weapon. It was their early gameplay and flow and how they moved in towards Condi and the justification for playing that kind of a long game, 30, 35 minutes, all that stuff, in a fairly aggressive league. Now, Invictus Gaming is going to need time. Hopefully they get everything right and together before you get into that crunch time going into playoffs. I really do. It would be a damn shame. Next topic is going to be OMG. Specifically, the acquisition of Yihan. I wanted to talk about this. A lot of people will be like, who the hell cares? Now, there's still some people out there that are OMG hopefuls, that hopes that OMG can find themselves into a playoff spot. Let's talk about that. A playoff spot. But right now, they've been consistently at the bottom barrel of the league. And, now they're announcing that they picked up Yihan. But does that change things? A lot of people would be willing to say yes, because Yihan has that experience. He's been with Team WE. He's been with Victory 5. He's been with, all RNG. And he's had a lot of this, internal, when I'm saying pressure, I mean, the fact that he can put pressure on a game in the early portions of it. FPX as well is a point. He is the early game aggressor, and he might be able to give OMG a double threat. Him and Icon, right? Him, Icon, and if they're able to get, Curse continuing to play well, then you have a playoff team. My problem, immediately, is that OMG's issues have never been their jungler. That's going to be a hot take right there. A lot of people are saying, if OMG gets that right jungler, they'll be back on the map. If they get another Loveland, then they'll be able to do well. But I don't think that's the case. That is not the issue. Remember, my take on junglers is that, yeah, sure, the junglers make the team. But the lanes certainly make the jungle. Suddenly the jungler has so many more options when the laners are doing their job and they're communicating and working alongside him. You have so many more options. It's kind of like what's happening with SOFMs. SOFM can in the past look so good when he's with Zatai. Coming in with Gogo, a little bit off at times, but he's had that run because Gogo's had good moments with his Vladimir or Orianna. Mala, hell no, he doesn't look good. Because a lot of the times you suddenly put some pressure in the early game in these junglers, because by necessity, they need to be superheroes. And a lot of the times, a jungler like Ning can have access to Raptor so frequently when used alongside Rookie. Well, there are other fantastic junglers that are not able to do that nearly as often. So I want to put that into your head. Because OMG have had, at this point, 7 junglers in about 2 years' time. Unbelievable amount of jungle talent coming in and out of that company. And so, or organization. Where I would say, if we were talking about which jungler I would say are good enough to just remain on that team if they had just been consistent, Fire Lolly is a good jungler. World 6 is a good jungler. Those 2 junglers I think are fine. Mountain is a good and experienced jungler. Like, already, and I think Jericho has had his moments and you can kind of push him and move with those pieces. It is crazy to me that you can rush through all of these talents, continue to do this, and then continue to have that revolving door and blame your junglers. It is not the jungler's fault on OMG why they're performing so poorly. It is organizational, top to bottom. The environment that exists does not create for a well-disciplined team. That when I'm watching OMG, so often does it seem like these junglers are there to camp mid. And it's not like a very subtle way of creating vision control around the mid lane to allow for safety for him, or, more direct camp mid like what EDG used to do, actually. What EDG did last year, where it was like, Scout's the only consistent member on this team. What do we got to do? We got to be able to count mid and get him out of the lane. Or same stuff with Team WE, where if you had Melon, you had Magic, you had all these rookie junglers, Beishang eventually, but now we're starting to see more out of that, where they're like, yeah, CA has been stellar for us. Camp mid and get him out of there. But it is no subtlety with OMG and how they get their game plan down. And when you finally see the camp happening, there is such drastic communication issues amongst him and their mid laners. And the constant is how Icon plays it out. While Icon is a great individual player, if you go down the list of all the mid laners in the LPL, that is no longer an asset that you can rely on, where you just have fantastic talent in the mid lane. Because even if you get down to it, you have some great mid laners in this league. I'm gonna challenge all you guys to have this mid lane tier list for yourself and try and say, okay, where do I place Icon? Is Icon at the top of the list? Hell no. Is he in the middle of the list? A lot of people would do that. For me, he's around like low tier mid or high tier low, which people will be like, what the fuck does that mean? But really rank it for yourself. Because like I can throw that ranking out for everyone out there, and I think he has some great moments, and those moments really matter. But if you're in a league with Kuro, with Scout, with Doinby, Rookie, I'll even say Yagao, because like when he didn't have much tape to his name with coming into his second year, but first year was fabulous. I still have Yagao above him. That's gonna be big. Yuki, right? Maple is a big one. That one I think he's in the same boat. And then you start going down to Xiaohu, Xie, Knight. No longer an excuse. I'll even put Korn into that discussion and say Korn is much better, based off what he did with top esports before they brought in Knight. And so all of that discussion is crucial. Communication is crucial. And no longer can you have that excuse of throwing a jungle into the mix and seeing if things change. You need more of that organization. And that's my challenge to OMG. It's my challenge. If I was put in the managerial position of OMG, I would come in. I would say, all right, let's see what we can do. Bottom lane, Crystal and Hudia. You guys, of course, stay. I like that big mix-up and change in the organization. I think that's good. Hudia came in as a great support player from Snake, and he is such a strong support. I can see him on a Rakan, on a Nautilus, all of that. He's great. He's fantastic. Crystal, a lot of question marks around him, but he has the experience. And he's still a great player. You may not be able to take down the top 4 in the league, but you're not even a top 4 team. You should be happy with what you have. He can take you to a playoff run. Curse is a fantastic talent already. I'm sad that you lost Ale, but you keep Curse, right? Maybe you can try an acquisition of Ale again. I don't know what situation that, what happened there. But if it's a lost cause, then keep Curse. All right. I've already said 3 players you can keep. Guogo is a sub for mid lane. Start rotating that and see what changes that brings to your lineup. I'm sad that hasn't actually happened. And then see what happens there. I'm a big fan of running Guogo for about 2 weeks. See where that lies. If there are real improvements, then continue to do that. Because all players, no matter if they're a franchise player or not, are exempt from that pressure. And I think that's something that we need to see from OMG is more pressure and I'd say consistent coach on that front. Boom. They haven't been the same without when they lost SMLZ. When they were a top 4 team in the league, that one spring split went over to Rift Rivals. It's true they weren't showing strongly in Rift Rivals, but for whatever reason there was internal drama and conflict that arose with SMLZ leaving, and I think that was a damn shame. Boom. All right. I'm going to start talking Dominus. Now, Dominus is an interesting one. Dominus is a team coming into this split, won NEST. They also took down EDG in the playoffs and found themselves deeper than anyone would have expected. And they made no changes, too. They still have Coach Bai. They still have all of their 5 players in that roster. So you would expect them to get better. But I'm the one that made the call in the preseason going into summer that while I rated them higher than most people going into spring, I definitely rated them lower than most people going into summer split. People thought they would go deep in summer and playoffs. I rated them outside of the playoffs. I said they were not going to be making playoffs. Now, of course, what I say is not going to be the law, right? It's an expectation. And the backing about that, the reasoning for that, is that, they came into the spring split with good synergy. They didn't change any of the players in the LDL, and they rocked the LDL. They absolutely dominated from not only having the strongest talent across the board. I think Chong Hong was one of the best top player in the LPL at that, the LDL at that point. That's a plus. That's 100%. Twyla was a fantastic mid laner and team fight mid laner. Cassiopeia was insane. And then from that point forward, Gala was a great facilitating role. He was a great team fight AD carry once again. Xiao Peng was a great individual talent. He was a star of a jungler. And so, in the LDL, you look at those leagues and you say, okay, what does that mean in the LPL perspective? And for that team, question marks. No one knew. No one knew what that would mean when you bring in these players and they would not be the best in their roles. That's suddenly the challenge. But I thought that they were already very solid in their team fighting, and a lot of the teams coming into the spring split were just starting to get together, gel, really. And that team would be able to take advantage of some of the teams that were not organized, like Team WE, that came into the split with multiple rotations in their roster. At that point, Team WE was a team that was benching Mystic at points, right? That's nonsense to me, but that's what you're going to be doing. Then you're going to be losing out in synergy. You're going to be losing out in experience, especially since your support, your jungle, and top lane are rookies or just players without experience. So you're really starting from scratch at that point. But back to Dominus, they came in ready, well-adjusted. Their players had worked together. They understood the system. And what surprised me with Gala coming in and showcasing pure confidence in his play and just exceptional performance in teamfight. He was a player that came in from the LDL, and unlike Martin, unlike these players that came up from that point, he didn't dip in his performance. He actually excelled under that spotlight. That's incredible for those type of players, that he would be able to come in and look just as good as Xiao Peng and Mark. And so suddenly you have those 3 pieces. And the reason why I still doubt this team with those 3 pieces still performing is that if we're talking about playoff AD carries, I'm just going to go into the last playoff and then list of AD carries that I think are better, right? People may not agree, but that's the best of it. Jackie Love. No discussion there. Jackie Love is better. For FPX, LWX better, right? I'm just talking about individual talent, right? I'm talking about laning, talking about team fighting. Those 2 players immediately. iBoy, EDG. Oh, iBoy has some off moments, but if he's disciplined, if he's focused, if EDG is looking good, then boom. And that says a lot, because remember, a lot of people look at that last playoff series and see, Sino Dragons or Dominus took down EDG. That is still, to me, a major fumbling from EDG. From drafting and their solo lanes not consistently having at least one lane that they can play through, consistently saying, okay, yeah, Scout and Ray can be under tower for the first 10 minutes of the game, and we're okay with that. Weren't able to adapt under the level 1s that Sano were doing, and their junglers were consistently behind. For Haro, he was behind because he made bad calls. For Clearlove, he was behind because, they had no pressure, and he was constantly behind by those 3 lanes. So that was just a systemic reason for him being behind in those games, and I didn't put any blame on him. But EDG, iBoy, better. JD, Imp, I would actually say before that playoff run, I would say Gallo's better. After the playoff run, in those playoffs, I think Imp really performed to his peak, back to his old days. And I would still say on a consistency basis, I would put Imp a little bit below, because it seems like, coming into the split, we're back at it. RNG, Uzi, you know what I'm going to say about that. Mystic, he's top 3. Loken, once again, top 5. So Gala, from just the playoff perspective, is already not up to snuff. And if we're going to teams that just missed out, who just missed out in the spring playoffs, then you're going towards BLG, Jin Zhao. Jin Zhao had a stellar performance this split. I had Jin Zhao above him. Suning, SMLZ. SMLZ had the worst split of his life. But right now he's back up to snuff. And if we're talking about consistency, I had SMLZ above him. LGD, Kramer. Kramer is insane. Kramer actually had the standout performance of his career right here, but no one's going to talk about it because LGD just bumped out of playoffs and they weren't like a real team. But I think coming into the split, LGD is going to be a big player. And then you know what I'm going to say. We're going to go down to it, and all these teams you start having conversations about. And I'll say, Gala is better than Snakes. Asura, the way he played well, I still think Gala is much better than that. Victory 5, Y4. Gala is better than Y4. OMG, all of their AD carries better than them. Rogue Warriors, Zhang Wuji. That's a real discussion. I think Zhang Wuji is better. So that's where, now we're back on that context, right? Back to the point that I was making. Suddenly, Gala, individually, if we're just talking about laning phase, he's not known for that. He would struggle on that one, right? Going into team fighting, back to the point where I'm making. He's performing above and beyond. Still don't have him on my top list going into playoffs. And then Xiaopeng, I have him as my top 4, if not top 3, jungler. So he is going to be the person, for me, that is the identity of the team in playoff runs, if that's going to be where they come in. But then back to the core of my discussion, away from those 2 players, Twyla, in a league that is known for their mid laners. Twyla is not the talent in solo lanes, and especially since the meta that really challenges solo lanes. He's not that kind of guy. He is a team fighter. He's a supporting facilitator. And even amongst facilitators like Shahu, that we've showcased that the way they're playing, he has great standout some great standout performances, like his Corki game, a last split, regular season, late in the season. But consistently, he's behind. Top lane, Shang Hong. While the discussion in the LDL was that he was, the best top laner, discussion right now is that he's fumbling in top lane in top lane matchups. And we have a lot of great top laners again. Once you're in a Premier League, you got to perform like Premier talent. And I think that we get to the discussion. The core issue of Dominus is while they have fantastic synergy and their team fighting is great, they're going up against a lot of teams that are just figuring themselves out. And now you're starting to see the performances that they're having. And right now, at this stage in the game, they haven't picked up a series win. They just haven't. So that's tough. That's one of those things and topics that you don't want to see happen for a team to now be struggling. And maybe they come back. Maybe they do, like an Invictus Gaming high. But as there's so much competition, where in this last split, they just got into playoffs off of what BLG's underperformance, in the middle portion of the split. They really need to pick up those wins. Same thing happened for Suning, right? A lot of that will be wrinkled out. LGD is another example that I think that they have to get past, and I feel like that's my point on Dominus. Those were the expected pitfalls. It's happening. Maybe they come back, and the way they do it is if Twyla, Changhong, and specifically Gala can go above and beyond. And now let's talk about more positive points, right? How much time do we actually go through this one? So now we're 28 minutes into this. I'm going to talk about the 2 big pluses. Teams that I still believe are, 3-0. EDG and LNG, formerly known as Snake. I'm going to go with the big plus of LNG. LNG, man. LNG. Now, they've done this before. Spring split last year, people will remember, when the whole franchising system got created to begin with. And people, they go to Chongqing, they go into the snake pit, and they get demolished. Now, people are wondering if is that the same situation? Are they just going to have that run and then go into the middle portion of the split when teams are starting to get things together and then start losing, begin that losing streak, and then just miss out, right? And then start, going back to the usual snake that we kind of saw. I don't think that's the case. I think we're under a new no longer Snake, of course, but a new regime for the team in Chongqing. That for so long in its history, LNG just did not have mid lane talent. Mid lane, the role that is literally the most important part of your team. That is the core, the spine of your map. If your mid lane fails, your top lane and both bot lane are compromised. And you can make the point about jungle, but mid lane and jungle, 2v2, are the most important. And while you have SOFM, and at times there were inconsistencies, he was still a stellar player that lacked a Robin. He was a Batman without a goddamn Robin. He was coming in and getting his goddamn kneecaps hurt. And if we just go down the list of the players that this squad has had, and let's just go for it, because they've consistently had below, like bottom tier mids, and I don't want to be overly negative, but that's been the case. So Andy, I want to give him love, because Andy came in for a few games. I think that if you develop and work on that kind of talent, he's a very talented player, solo queue talent, come in from the LDL, and he's somebody that you can put in a lot of work, but he wasn't ready, right? He wasn't ready for it, and he didn't come out strong. He actually, I think that kind of system wasn't ready for him yet. And then you move on to the next one. Mala, I already said, Mala, of course, wasn't even mechanically strong. He actually came in, and the team had boosted him as a player, or at least described him as a player there for consistency. He would come out with the tankier, the bruiser picks, or the Galio, and he would be there to be that supportive option. Since they lost Guoguo, he needed to be able to fill that position. And a lot of the times, he, of course, as you would expect, lost lane, humongously so, and misexecuted in team fights and skirmishes. And that, if that's your purpose, is to be there and to support, execution is actually fairly crucial. And that was a major issue with that one. Of course, coming in as a Korean import, communication is pretty key, and that's something you recognized as it was a major pitfall. And then you move on to the next mid laner. I've already mentioned Guoguo. Guoguo is the type of player that, once again, was supportive. I think he had his good points. And I think he was like a mid-tier talent, somebody who came in as a great Vladimir and Orianna player, but anything else or expanded if the meta changed it, was just somebody that could not match against a lot of these lanes and could not work alongside SOFM. While SOFM made a lot of plays, half of them were inadvisable plays. They wouldn't be in a position to outplay. And he wouldn't be in a position to, and I'm talking about Guoguo, to do much in the early portions of the game. And that was just his style. His style was to be able to scale up, play these control mages. And that wasn't the style that they were really trying to go for, or at least really playing for. And then we go on to, man, they went through a lot. And this is the last mid laner that I really felt comfortable with, and it was Zatai. And so Zatai's experience, his strong mechanics, like those two combined, I felt like really worked alongside this team. And I felt like it was a sad point. I don't remember if this was the exact split, but the split in which they were having question marks around their support player because Jetso had retired at that point for health reasons, and then they really didn't have a support for a long time. Didn't happen. Crystal had to move from AD carry to support, and he had some good moments, but you could definitely tell, even that one game I think SOFM did so, that they were a team that were just understaffed, under-talented on that one. So when they had the mid laner that could really push them, they as a team could not move forward. Now they finally have somebody, Plex from Griffin, of course, on the organization. And a lot of times when we make that introduction, of course, you have to give the caveat as was not the reason for the team's success. They have Chovy, and Chovy's the reason why they were successful. But Plex came in, was scouted and picked up by Griffin, and now scouted and picked up by LNG, and he's already performing incredibly well alongside Dwan, formerly known as Caveman, the support for OMG Gaming, now the support for LNG. Two incredibly crucial pickups that is now seeing this team early game success and mid-game discipline that the team didn't have in the past and was really struggling with. So that's what will keep LNG on that track, is where those two major pickups. But the one that I wanted to focus on is specifically Plex, that will continue to find growth on this team once he's able to learn the language, or at least enough of it to communicate with the team. Kind of like when we talk about mixed language rosters, all I'm trying to look for is something similar to EDG on that MSI run in 2015 when they had just broken English. Or just a broken foundation of communication so they can understand what each other, what they're thinking, what they want, and what their role are coming into the team is. So now segueing to the next team that is super successful is EDG, because the two players that understood their roles, Jinu and Jeje. Jinu and Jeje, man, did not see that one coming. Now, Jinu, his test was coming in from a small market team into the big player and being able to showcase that he can do it, because the last player that was, challenged in that front was Amazing J. Amazing J coming in from BLG, coming into a team that, there was so much more expectations for an RNG, and obviously flopped. Then you see Jinu come in from LGD and be that player, and then move to Victory 5 and be that player, and now is tasked to be on EDG and to have a completely, I wouldn't say a completely different role, but to have far more flexibility, because doesn't always have to be that player. That it's going to be scout, it's going to be iBoy at times, and he just needs to really identify his role game to game and realize that he is not going to get 100% of the pressure 100% of the time, much like he did on previous teams he's been with. And he is literally went off the charts in terms of his success. Jinu is just such a strong talent. And when you see like the level of creativity that he's able to have in a lot of these games where he's on the Renekton and, a lot they understand the enemy team picked up Rift Trail, they're going to go top lane. He just hides in that bush. It's a risky play, but it is a confident risk that he's able to take, play with his team, structure around it, and then make that flank happen when the Rift Tails get placed down. Like, those are crucial moments. And of course, waiting when his team is going for Baron and being areas where he can just sit there for flank. He is such a great playmaker for his team and has such a calm mentality that it's just, you got to give him respect for it. Like, Jinu coming onto the team is a big positive. Now, I'm going to give a good caveat here and say that Ray is not a reason for the team's failures in the last split. And I don't want people to do two things. Point the blame at Ray and point the blame at Clearlove. Because Clearlove came onto that team and brought the team structure. And Clearlove, in my estimation last split, was a top 5, if not, not top 5, but like 6/7th best jungler in the last split. And so that's playoffs. That's a playoff jungler. And that's a jungler who has an insane amount of consistency that I think swap places with XX because of XX's performance during the playoffs, or can swap places with Meteor during the early portions of the split. But the only point of changing him or really challenging his position is because XX and Meteor are young talent, young players you can invest in, you put in contract for, and you can expect that 3-year contract you live by, right? Or 2-year contract you can live by and know that they play for that extent, right? And on top of that they have a ceiling that you are not yet sure of, right? That if there is a mechanical talent that you have seen and you've scouted for, that if we're only talking about the problems of this player being experience, calm mentality, that they can do it on the biggest stage, that just comes to running them through split after split. And so you instill that on them. And back to the point of Jeje's come in with insane mechanics on that with his Lee Sins. But also on top of that, he is such a confident player that apparently doesn't even need the experience because he's making the right calls. Now, when he's coming to third-party tournaments, and that's for me the biggest beneficiary, is the fact that they're able to try him in competitive games before the split even begins. I think that's something that a lot of regions really, really crave for. LCK has Casper Cup, I'll give him that. But the LCS and LEC just don't have that, right? And they really crave for that. I think, and people will say that Academy does that. But Academy doesn't put you on that level of like, best of threes, best of fives to challenge you in pressure moments. I think I would redact my LEC comment because National Leagues really do that. And if you're a player that goes through the National Leagues, you'll see that success in the LEC. That's what we saw from Xerxes when he came through. Technically, I'm not going to call Turkey a National League, but they're in such close proximity of Turkey, so he's able to do that. And then I know now Leader is on a Misfits. He's found that success through the Misfits Academy roster that has been in a National League in France. And so being in a competitive environment where there is pressure, there are expectations, fans watching you, and every game truly matters, that's what will put you in a position of success. And Jitja was in that position, and he was able to really, really improve on himself. And so now you're seeing EDG succeed through new jungler, new top laner, and the focus that they showcased to me in the last few weeks of the regular season before that playoff debacle is now there at the beginning of the split. So by all intents and purposes, EDG is now on that championship run. And I want to end at that point of the context in the podcast here is that think of it this way. Now we're on that final run to World Championships. And now we're talking about EDG being on that pedestal. RNG already there, it seems to be. And FPX coming in for that redemption run. And IG is nowhere to be seen. Now, I hope that's not the case. Just for my own personal bias, I want to see a champion rise again to at least have the chance of defending that title in an international. But we'll have to see where that goes, and I hope that they come back.